Working. Okay, you're live.
Hi, welcome to the Cleveland Community Police Commission Rules Committee meeting. It is 6:06 and we're starting a little bit late, but we have many members of the audience and the public here, so we're happy to see that. And I will start with a roll call. Welcome to everybody here and in the audience and online. So the roll call is Commissioner Benito.
Present.
Commissioner Donaldson is on leave. Commissioner Van Leer.
Present.
And I'm Commissioner Wong, the chair. I'm here. So we have quorum, and we will. Did you want to add something to the agenda, Commissioner Van Leer?
Normal process to the chair would be to review the agenda and approve the agenda. So I think there are questions around, for example, are we going to talk about the
Draft accountability process.
that? And I do have another agenda item I want to ask. And also, is our lawyer going to speak to anything? Do we need to hear from Martin Bylaw about anything? Or
I think no.
no? You
No.
good? So that we would add at least some discussion of the
Draft.
accountability draft.
Okay.
And I would like to add an agenda item around committee leadership.
What's
Committee leadership.
committee?
This leadership of this committee.
All right.
And I would like that to be moved to the beginning immediately after the start of the meeting, before public comment and
So what
at the
is
start of the meeting.
are you making a motion?
I'm making a motion to have a conversation and vote on committee leadership at the beginning of the meeting.
So then who will run the meeting after?
We will decide that. The motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, so we'll take a vote. Commissioner Benito,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer,
Aye.
and I vote nay. So this is after public comment?
No, it's before public comment.
Okay, then continue with the motion.
So my motion is to rescind the committee chair and elect a new chair.
Okay,
I'll second.
we have a second. Is there any discussion?
Well, it can be.
Is there, I do want to note that we haven't passed a new rule for committee chairs, but in the co-chairs, there has to be a just cause for the removal of the chair. Would you like to give a just cause?
I think the management of this committee has been lacking. I would like to see more consistency. For example, we were not consulted on this agenda. There have been meetings canceled when we had business to conduct. So that is my justification.
All right, the agenda was already set from last time because it was old business. I thought that it would take at least an hour and a half to conduct that business. Was there any other specificity about, and given that rules, I believe, even Commissioner Benito has noted, has met the most often of every committee. I'm not sure what is lacking. The last committee meeting, the rules committee meeting, I had to cancel because of a work emergency. And that was frankly to my detriment because now you're invoking some authority that we're going to be discussing today in 1.45. So, yes.
There was an additional rules committee meeting that was canceled. I can check my notes, but both times we had 1.4.5 and at the other meeting that was canceled, 1.4.4 was also on the table. And when we canceled, there was discussion of, we asked to reschedule the meeting and there was no follow-up on rescheduling the meeting for the rules committee meeting in January.
In January, because it was scheduled for this month. It's a regular meeting now.
No, we talked about in an email chain, we talked about scheduling a new meeting. That meeting was never scheduled. This is our regular rules committee meeting right now. So you also canceled an additional meeting.
So this is that my leadership. Okay.
Commissioner speaking. Point of order.
And I think that. Yeah. I'm looking up the date that it was canceled, but it was an additional month. So there have been, since the two drafts of 1.4.4 and 1.4.5 were drafted and submitted, there have been 2 months of meetings that were canceled and not rescheduled. I think that, and you brought up in our last full commission meeting that, that we hadn't discussed this rule yet. We should have discussed this months ago, but because there were 2 meetings canceled, we haven't been able to.
Ms. Benito, 1.4.4, these drafts were not ready. You had changed it significantly to today. 1.4.4 took 4 hours of live editing to finish. I had wanted these drafts to be moved together. Mr. Van Leer, despite my protest, wanted to separate these rules. And I do believe it is an unfortunate circumstance that we're editing a committee chair rule after the co-chair election. I'm not finished, please. I recognize you. I recognize you. I recognize you. Thank you. So, and Martin, can I ask what is the Roberts rules associated with this? Because we don't have a pending committee rule that addresses the removal of a chair. Oh, you press it.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so I did some research on the committee rules recently, and per Robert's rules, the rule is however that chair or that position was appointed, you may be able to amend that original appointment by making a motion to do so in a subsequent meeting. So.
And when does that become effective? During the meeting or the next meeting?
I think it would be, I'm not sure on that when it would become effective, but I could look into that. But the actual procedure is to have the authority that appointed the position to then rescind that original motion.
One more question I'll get. I will note that we right now have 3 members out of so the original authority was 5 members, which, it's I'm just going to lay this out and this is being done because I'm facing right now the 2 people who made a motion to remove me from the commission and also remove me from the committee. And originally that motion required me to, if that first motion failed to remove me from the commission, it was to remove me from all committee work. This is the same process that has been outlined here in the draft accountability process. And I believe, though I have it's just my belief that this was done in reaction to my opposition against these 2 members, Commissioner Van Leer and Commissioner Benito, in the policy committee, where I've simply asked that we read the policies rather than rubber stamp them. Again, in the last commission meeting, the full commission meeting, I was never given specific charges. And basically, I'm facing my 2 executioners who now, instead of having a normal discussion on these rules, want to take that authority away from me by circumventing. It's not even clear. Martin is looking up when does it become into effect, but they've moved this to the top of the agenda. I think it's very clear what is happening. And I would like and other than me canceling 2 meetings when we've had probably 20 meetings, I would like some just cause because I think this is what the community deserves. Otherwise, apparently, there are commissioners that can act arbitrarily and based on personal agenda in order to remove leadership and disrupt the work and the mission of the commission. Ms. Medino.
Thank you. So I just wanted to clarify one thing you said, which is that one of the motions was to remove you from the committee, and that's not accurate. It was to remove you from chairs of the committee. So there was never a motion to remove you from the committee wholesale. So I did find the date, and I just wanted to clarify. So starting in September, on 9/18, you tried to cancel the 9/21 Rules Committee meeting. And the only reason why that meeting happened is because myself, Commissioner Van Leer, and Commissioner Donaldson said, we plan to be there and we will have the meeting. We would like for you to be there, but the meeting will go forward. And then on 10/27, the next month, you canceled the 11/1 rules meeting. or 2 months later. And then you also canceled the January 3rd Rules Committee meeting on January 2nd. And so even though, yes, the committee has met quite a few times, between September and now, there have been a number of issues that we could have been dealing with. For example, creating an accountability process, because there have been numerous, concerns about different aspects of commissioner accountability, including attendance, including decorum. And so we could have been developing a process, and then also starting in, on prior to 9/18, there were drafts of 1.4.5 and 1.4.4. And so in a time where we have had work to do and rules to be passed, then you have tried to cancel 3 meetings.
So
You have successfully canceled 2 of them, one of which only happened because we forced your hand. So I disagree with your assessment of why this is happening, and also why we're making this decision. I can speak for myself, and I just think that we need to make sure that we're being on top of this work, and so far that hasn't been the case in the last 6 months.
So I will say that the rules have been fully passed for many months, I believe, since late May or even earlier, the full set of the rules. These meetings were only open at the behest of first of Executive Director Jason Goodrick, because I didn't think that some things probably needed to be corrected, but I did not think that we needed more rules, but we needed more accountability, which I spoke about multiple times. And the reason why 9/21, I believe, was canceled was that the drafts were not ready. And they were still not ready by the time we edited them, as evidenced by the fact that one rule took 4 hours of drafting to do. And I have to note that that rule, Ms. Benito, you were supposed to draft with me. We had separated the work, but you arbitrarily worked only with Mr. Goodrick. That is true. I remember I was at the APL looking at cats, and I said, can we work on it? And you said, oh yeah, you can meet with me in 5 minutes because Jason and I are having a meeting. Are you denying that now? Because I have the text. But I want to say that 9/21 was not canceled. So what are your reasons that you're giving me that I'm canceling these meetings? What were the reasons?
I've stated my reasons. And I would also note, if you believe that the rules needed to be amended, you could have, any time after I sent them out in September, you could have made edits and sent them to the entire to the entire committee, but that was not done.
I gave you criticisms of the rules since you had taken ownership of those rules. I gave you criticisms. They were never changed. And those rules took exceptional editing and discussion in order to discuss. I don't think, and they were so far from what I thought was fair to the entire commission, that they needed to be edited, they needed to be done in public. I try to do as much as in public. However, we could have had discussion, and I can't really edit them online with setting them back, because that would establish a quorum there. I don't know what the Open Meetings Act rules would be for that draft, but we cannot be doing business outside of the public. So the only solution I had was simply to have the live edits, which was very, very onerous. And I believe Mr. Donaldson and Ms. Syed, who were on the commission, wanted to delay that until the drafts were done. So if there are, other facts that you would like to present, you can. On January 1st, I had said that I had a work emergency. So that's eliminated. And I don't remember, what was the statement for October 7th and 11/1? What was your
October 27th, you canceled the 11/1 meeting.
What was the reason given?
You canceled that, I would suggest.
So what is the reason? We had NACOL to go to. What was the reason I gave? I gave no reason. Is there any documentation? Can I ask?
Be better able to speak.
Well,
to the
I
reason
can't-
why-
Point of order here. We're getting into this back and forth. I don't think it's particularly productive.
So,
I would
Mark,
like to make a motion. I would move to make a friendly amendment to my original motion to clarify the language and the purpose. So I would move to rescind this committee's decision to appoint Commissioner Wong as chair, and to make it effective immediately, and to appoint a chair pro tem for the next period of time. That would be my motion.
I'll second.
So are we going to be abiding by Robert's rules for the discussion of these rules? I will note again that there's a massive conflict of interest here. Two people who tried to remove me, and you were wrong. The original motion, as I was stated by Commissioner Ridgway and other people that were in the room, Commissioner Zayed, were to remove me from all commission work.
No.
Mr. Goodrick, is that true or not? You were in the room.
Point of order, I would be happy to read that if you'd like, but if,
But it doesn't, I'm not saying that the motion that was presented was that, but the initial intent. The initial intent was, no?
well, there is
So
a
why
discussion
is-
here about this particular motion.
I
And
am,
so if there's
again,
discussion about that, I think it's relevant.
I
If
am
not, I
again
think we should
noting-
vote.
I'm again noting that the two people who tried to enact my
Point of
chair,
order, I don't think this is relevant to the discussion. You've repeated yourself 3 times now.
we're having
and I
a
think we need to have
discussion.
a
Well, I
discussion.
will correct myself because what I'm saying is that the two people trying to remove me by a motion from my chairships are now the two people that are in the majority to decide this. On a motion that contained vague language, hyperbolic, false, potentially libelous language against me, that was tabled
Point of
by
order,
the
this is
commission.
not relevant to this
How is this
particular
not
motion.
relevant?
It's not. It's-
Because it has
You're
to be-
attacking our motives, and
I'm
that
not
is not
attacking your
relevant.
motives. I'm stating that you are the two people that put together that motion. What is
Which
wrong
you
with that
repeated
statement?
4 times already.
So
We've-
I can
we've
repeat,
heard
I have
this.
10 minutes to
We've heard
speak.
this.
Do I not? Do I have 10 minutes to speak under
Point of
Robert's
order, I'd
rules?
like to call a vote.
So call the
This
vote.
is repetitive
Martin,
and
Martin,
not
can they
productive.
do this?
Seconded.
Can we?
Why would this not?
This is not a public comment period. I'm afraid we're in the middle of a conversation. It's a motion on the floor, and it's the commissioners who speak. All due respect, you can speak during public comment.
Ridiculous. This is an embarrassment.
Martin,
I would like to call for a vote. This
I
is,
would like Martin to speak first if there's anything in Robert's rules to deal with this. Thank you.
They're calling for the vote, so, that stops the discussion, right?
Okay, all right, so we'll call for the vote. Commissioner Benito,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer,
aye.
and I vote no. So the motion passes. Who would like to be chair pro tem?
Do you want to do it?
Sure.
I'll nominate, Pete Van Leer to be chair pro tem.
I accept the nomination or second it, whatever is appropriate.
Okay, I would, Commissioner Van Leer, I want some clarity. Are we abiding by Robert's rules for the discussion of these motions and these documents? Do you wish to change the agenda now that you're the chair?
No, we've already changed the agenda for
Okay.
the day.
So I think, can we move to the next agenda item?
Very
Do we need
good.
to vote?
We do need to vote on chair pro tem.
I think,
So is there a second?
Second.
We take a vote. Commissioner Benito,
aye.
Commissioner Van Leer,
Aye.
and I vote no.
Okay, moving on to the next agenda item. Review, edit, and vote on
No,
by.
we missed public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you. Public comment. Who would like to speak? Is there a mic?
Yeah, there's a mic. We can just line up over here for anybody who wants to speak.
I'm here to use my comment. Can't,
I've had the
Please
pleasure
announce
of,
Can you
attending.
please announce your name?
Yeah, my name is Greg Levy, Cleveland resident. I've been here for a few meetings. Each meeting I've seen policy issues that should be earth-shattering be discussed. I've heard that the police department is not giving this committee the resources that it needs to do the accountability that it's formed for. And I've seen absolutely no response from the committee about the actual policy issues that happen, besides Commissioner Wang. And I understand that when you gave your reasons for why your plausible case for removing Councilor Wang, it had something to do with like she didn't talk nice when she emailed about a situation about a committee, or there is no legitimate cause whatsoever outside of high school type things. Like her personality is too strong. When you have 12 other people, last meeting, the attorney from the city let you guys know, and the public know for the first time that you did not have access, legal access to the documents that you need to hold police officers accountable. And the committee had no response. None. Every policy issue that comes up, I hear no response from you. It only comes from one person that's actually talking about the issue. Now, does she do it perfectly? No. Okay, you do have a public-facing situation. You got to deal with these people, and you got to have the right type of personality. But it is embarrassing that you guys sit here and act like you are doing any type of professional job. But we have the family members of people who died, who are sitting here, have no confidence in you. None. And then when it comes to substantive policy issues, you guys have no response. It is a fucking embarrassment. You should be ashamed of yourselves. And you're going to take the one person who actually talks about issues that's not a rubber stamp on the city. You, my friend, are a rubber stamp on the city. Okay, the mayor can remove each and every one of you guys. So the whole entire committee is suspect from day one. You work for the mayor. So the only way that you can show me that you actually care is to say things about policy issues. When the city does not cooperate with what you're trying to do, that should be the number one problem. Not the personality of the only council person that's talking about issues. Be serious. Blood, there are people whose families have died. And it's not even it's not close to being moved. This voter is not even going up the hill. You guys work for the city. You have to show us that you're willing to be courageous. And that's not how you be courageous, by getting rid of somebody for no reason. There is nothing that you said is legitimate. We are not in the 4th grade. You need to get your shit together. This is an embarrassment. An embarrassment. And I believe that the police department set the rules up for your entire, the form of this committee to be an embarrassment. To be an embarrassment. You're on the news looking stupid. And everyone has responsibility for that. But the one person who's actually talking about issues, it's time to get rid of her? Are you serious? People are watching. People are paying attention, and people will know.
Hello, my name is Cameron Damaska. I am also a resident of Cleveland, and yeah, I wanted to come to this meeting. I second all of the sentiments that were just previously expressed, and yeah, I've been following this for the past 8 months or so. I've seen residents come here and talk about the fact that police are ignoring certain crimes in certain neighborhoods. There have been people coming saying that they are victims of domestic abuse by their police officer husbands or ex-husbands that hasn't been looked into. There are people who want to bring appeals to this commission related to police misconduct. The whole purpose of you guys existing is to process those appeals. And from what I understand, you all have not done that a single time yet. You don't really seem interested in doing what your actual job is. You two both decided that the number one thing that needs to happen on this agenda, you don't have any changes you want made to it. You didn't present any changes you want to be made. So instead, you took the first 30 minutes to go through, like, basically something that seems really suspect. Like, so none of you all know whether or not Terry should be the chair of this meeting or not. That was something that, I don't know your name, I'm sorry, but you said that you are defaulting to Robert's rules and you don't know whether this takes place at this meeting or the next meeting. But that just got railroaded because 2 commissioners decided the number one thing that needs to be happening on this agenda right now is putting forward and removing Terry from the position of chair. After you all at the previous meeting brought forward, and I mean, the specific things that were brought up were you wanted to remove her from all of the chairs, and also, because you don't have the authority to, you wanted to request that Justin Bibb remove her. So sure, there's this technicality where Terry Wong was wrong in what was said. The actual thing you all wanted to do is have Justin Bibb be the one to remove her. That is absolutely ridiculous and just an absolute disgrace to all of this. And I want to speak to something that I believe her name is Chandra, that you brought up at the last commission meeting. You said that Terry Wong is doing a lot of important work on this commission. She is the one putting in the hours, which everybody can see. Anyone watching these can see that Terry is the one really driving forward anything productive on this commission. Like, she is the one who's talking about the fact that they can't get public records from the police. Everything I've seen that's an actual policy issue is coming from Terry. Now, you acknowledged that in what you brought up. You said she is doing important work, but you have interpersonal issues with her, and that is the reason. And I mean, I've watched the clip, watched the 15 minutes of when you were talking, followed by Terry's response, time and time again. And the things you brought up were you have an interpersonal issue with Terry, and then you read parts of an email chain where it is impossible for anyone from the public to actually understand the context of anything that's being talked about, or even see any way that Terry was in the wrong for what you said. So, for what she said. And so you guys failed to remove her at the full commission, and so you're making this backhanded move at the front of the meeting before anyone from the public actually gets a chance to speak to remove Terry under suspect terms, which I don't really, like, I feel like the thing you all now need to be talking about is, like, what is Terry chair for this meeting? Is she chair for next meeting? What is the Robert's rules of all of that? I think it's a ridiculous thing to have to be talking about at all. Like, you all could have just not brought that up, could have gone forward with this meeting, and we would be, what, we'd have 30 minutes of our time? Like, you guys just wasted that. And I don't really know what else to say besides the fact that people are paying attention, and this is absolutely ridiculous, and more people are going to show up to these. Like, from what I understand, like, no one has really ever come to a rules committee, maybe like 1 to 2 people, and what, there's like 10 people here? I'm planning on telling everyone I know about this. I hope everyone else here is as well. I hope there are some good journalists who will make it out here. I see Kimberly Brown here, so I'm hoping to see some good reporting on this. And yeah, you all should be expected for some help. Like, you guys should be expecting more and more people to show up to this because we voted to make this happen. We want to see an actual independent body reviewing police conduct, and you all seem to be doing everything in your power to make sure that doesn't happen. And yeah, there's just going to be more people showing up. There's going to be more anger, and get your shit together.
All right, sorry, I'm a regular, but now I have to repeat. My name is Lou. Not sure. And of course, a Cleveland resident. First of all, it's something maybe kind of out of topic, just like what the whole commission has been doing for a year. The printed agenda showing the first section, welcome and call to order, roll call and public comments. The next section will be old business. It seems like if you really want to follow some kind of orders made by the Roberts we don't know about, you skip the public comments and you started discussing you should leave this chair to hold to chair the meeting or not. Okay, now let's go back to the real issue here. Throughout the whole year, I have been making public comments here and even somewhere else, other public meetings. Even on Channel 5 News, I make that clear. Most of you are appointed into this commission after issue 24 was voted as a victory for the people of Cleveland. But most of the appointees, you guys were appointed to ensure the failure. Why? I made some comments in the past. Some people couldn't really understand. That's why lots of times when I'm walking down the street, people stop me and ask me questions. Because I do not like to name names, because I know you guys are all good people. But one particular point made by a previous gentleman. This is a serious work about policing, not personality contest. Nobody should be here to be Mr. or Miss Congeniality. Lots of you got appointed. You have a background working at a nonprofit. Unfortunately, now I have to make that plain blank. Working with a good years of nonprofit organization, lots of time due to the nature of nonprofits, all kinds of funding limits and rules and federal all the way down the limitation. You have been conditioned to compromise a lot in order to get job done. This is a skill. However, it's definitely the enemy when you need to work on issues about policing. When it goes to policing, it's a national crisis, just like sleep deprivation and food deprivation. Working on emotions to compromise will not work. It is fundamentally different from collaborating. I remember our commissioner, Dr. John Adams, mentioned a particular point in the earlier meetings, first half of the year, last year. You worry about the commission's independency, which issue 24 actually gives us. Yes, because none of you got appointed who have this kind of background, mentally, emotionally being conditioned that way. So by the time you come in to do this work, you think that we should all get along trying to make it work. Yes, throughout the time we did have lots of ups and downs. We have a very chaotic meetings, public meetings, firecrackers or even bombs going back and forth. But we also have productive discussions. But those things only happen when you guys can talk about issues with analytical mind, not talking only based on your emotions to compromise. Collaborating and compromising are not the same thing. Trying to make them look like now we are getting along, we work together. It doesn't work that way because the majority of you rarely applies the skill actually needed for this kind of work. You only demonstrate you are very skillful for nonprofit type of work. You're collaborating by compromising. Policing, unfortunately, politics definitely should not have this room for failure. Unfortunately, throughout the whole year, Terry Wang has been the only commissioner constantly doing the work. Yes, she did cancel several meetings, but when your required information or documents are not provided, what's the use to have a meeting to waste everybody's time? You don't like she said this, she doesn't like you say that. That is not the issue. You should think about to remove anybody from any position, don't even say the whole commission. On the other hand, for the independence of this commission, right now, you are actually selling yourself out, most of you, because of your wrong ideas of it. You want to use Mayor Bibb to remove her. Where is your independence? If for the commissioner who missed all kinds of meetings, more than 50% of meetings, not doing any work, these people are not even removed from anything, then why she has to be removed? In lots of meetings, she has been talking about issues, but you have a co-chair or other commissioners stopping her. Whoever stopped her talking, interrupted her talking, hey, nobody raised a voice saying these people should be looked at, should be removed, should be stopped. Then why should she? please do not do things backwards. You are good people. I believe you do have a good heart to join the commission. That's why I reminded you, don't make the community to think that you only want to be a commissioner just because this is a very convenient career ladder. Don't think that you can just get it right along without doing any work. Sometimes you may not see too many people showing up at the meeting. I do. Other people may not have the time, but they do watch live stream or even after the meeting day. They do watch the video. And this has been the reason why sometimes I cannot even walk on the sidewalk without talking to anybody about these issues. People remember me because I look weird. I talk weird. I'm a weird person. So they remember I say something at a police commission meeting. They ask me, what happened? Why they always stop that particular commissioner talking? At first, they did not know what she was talking about. I had to convince them, watch the meeting more often to understand the issue. After they watch that, they see me again on the sidewalk, on the bus. Even in the library or some other places, they talk to me again. I'm sorry. This is the true situation I have been facing as a community member. Then think about what kind of reputation you guys actually will carry in the community. I will repeat what I said in the past year. Please, most of you, leave. You are not bad people, but you are not really the right kind of people to do this work. You were picked to ensure the failure of this commission. So the people who die from the wrong kind of policing, their case will not be reviewed, appealed. Their justice will not really get up and resolved. Please, do not waste your time and everybody else's time. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Martin. I'm a resident of the city of Cleveland. Commissioners Van Leer, Benito, I guess you've won this battle. Congratulations. You had more power at this table today. Now, I guess it's incumbent upon you to do the work of this commission. The work, however, that I've heard y'all discuss is holding each other, quote unquote, accountable. So please forgive me for thinking the work of this commission is to hold police accountable for abuses of civil rights. So, like, I look forward, now that you've accomplished this at the table today, I look forward to the work that you will get accomplished much more effectively and efficiently. Hearing the case of Antoine Tolbert as an example of the abuses that this commission was created to hear. I'm glad that you have accomplished your goal today. I hope this enables you to do the work of what I thought, but again, please do forgive me if I was wrong, of what the work of this commission is supposed to be. Now that you have accomplished your goal today, I look forward to seeing you do the work of what I thought this commission was supposed to be. I think I'm the last.
Hi, is this on?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize, I have a migraine. I wanted to thank Commissioners Van Leer and Benito for their leadership. I'm also very impressed that Co-Chair Adams, Commissioners Rodriguez and Zayed are here. It's good to see you all engaged. So I wanted to correct a few misnomers. A few people said that they were trying to get the mayor to remove Commissioner Wong. And if you read the charter, the mayor is the only individual who can remove a commissioner. He can do that without a recommendation from the commission. And city council can overturn that if they have 2/3 of a vote. So I would encourage people to read that. I appreciate all of Commissioner Wong's hard work, but I do kind of feel like she creates her own work. When somebody writes something, you want to point out all their mistakes, and I just want to point out that the agenda talks about adapting rules instead of adopting rules. You're the one that created the agenda. People at home have no idea what you guys are voting on today because there's no phrase or sentence that says what you're voting on. I think the idea that those two rules should be together is ridiculous. And the bottom line is, based on conversations we had, the reason why this has taken so long is you were worried that the rule to remove the commission co-chairs would be used to remove a committee member. And that's part of the problem, is that everybody here, some of you are only here for 2 years, you are laying the foundation, the groundwork for the other commissioners to follow. And that's why these rules are so important, and you need to follow them. I want to point out, in the last 9 months, commissioners and community members have called for the removal of 3 commissioners. Commissioners Garrett Ferguson, Commissioner Kennedy, and Commissioner Wong. The commission can no longer ignore this. I'm not saying that you need to make a motion for the next meeting to remove Commissioner Wong, but what I'm saying is you can no longer keep going along to get along and not have a rule in place to address this down the road. The other thing I wanted to point out is the former co-chairs made recommendations when they sent a report to the mayor about Commissioner Kennedy's absences. And in that report, they mentioned Commissioner Wong's complaint about Commissioner Kennedy's absences. And in there's a recommendation to come up with a formal complaint process. So to the best of my knowledge, that hasn't been done. And as far as accountability goes, I agree with what people are saying, but the problem is that your job is to hold the police accountable, and if you can't hold yourselves accountable, what kind of credibility do you have? So, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the comment from all of you from the public for speaking out.
I think I did one.
I'm sorry?
I think I was supposed to make a comment.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, something completely different, just about the committees. I'm so glad to see that 1.4.5 allows flexibility and allows commissioners to voluntarily join committees and not have the process of having to send a Google or survey, because I think that will be the best fit to ensure that they're using their skills, talent, and treasure to whatever committee that they see fit. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, we're going to go into old business unless you have a comment.
I don't mean to belabor this point, but Rosie Palfy is not correct. There are other commissioners that have been asked for removal from the public, and that unfortunately includes Commissioner Adams, Commissioner Ridgway, and Commissioner Rodriguez. I don't think those, if we're going to name specific things, I think we should be accurate. I think the community's input on these things. However, it is the mayor and that will have to decide, and the barriers to that are gross neglect of duty, malfeasance, nonfeasance, and misfeasance. So again, we appreciate the community's input, but if the community does want to hold the commissioners accountable, remember that the person with the power for removal is the mayor and his council. And we have to think about why they haven't done so.
I think we need to proceed with the business. And the old business is the reviewing, editing, voting on bylaw 1.4.5 and possibly looking back at 1.4.4. So we do have a draft. I think it's been distributed. And I'd like to, there's been some comments, I think, from Commissioner Wong and some questions. We have a draft here, so let's. I I think we should just start looking at this and thinking about what we can do today and what we need to do, putting it outside of the committee and coming back in the rules committee as needed. So, right. So we have this document that's certainly nowhere near complete. There's a lot of different comments on it. So if we want, we can start looking through it line by line and pressing. I think that might be our best use of time at this point. Commissioner Benito, do you have,
Do you want me to read
who
it?
wants to start? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, okay.
To the chair, just let me go get the other computer so I can bring it up and make live edits, and we'll just
Okay.
keep a
Sure.
running down. So.
And please, this is important, so it's germane to what's happening. Because I know, our rules have, that a committee can only work with a minimum of 3 people, right, Martin? So if I leave and resign right now, they cannot hold this meeting. However, unlike them, I don't believe in winning because of
So
loopholes.
point of order, this
I
is.
no, I
like a
want
personal
to.
attack.
It's not.
Motivation.
let
No,
her
this is
speak.
a point of order in
It's not.
Robert's
I'm
rules.
just
You're
saying-
attacking our motivation.
I'm not
That is
attacking.
not
I
allowed.
didn't
Yes,
mention
you
your
are.
name.
She's allowed to speak.
I'm allowed to speak. When are you
Under
going to stop
Robert's rules.
censoring?
Under Robert's rules,
How am I attacking you? I
attacking
said
the
I'm not
motivations
using a
of
loophole.
other
I said
members.
I didn't
You're
say you. I said I.
I would just let her speak.
So again, the committees can only move forward with 3 people. That's the minimum. If I left right now, and this was actually offered to me as an option, that I would resign before this meeting, because despite, the appearance that this was a surprise, I had predicted this would happen. And the reason I had predicted this has happened is that, in my opinion, my sole opinion, this was the entire intent. But I don't believe in winning anything, arguments, a policy decision based on loopholes and based on personality. I believe that you have to argue the point, and sometimes I get it. People disagree. Feelings can get misinterpreted. I've certainly been upset by some of you, but I would never, ever move to arbitrarily remove another commissioner because I know the damage that will do to the entire cohesion of the commission. Because this is a collective of 13 people that is to serve the community, not our personal interests. So I just want to note again that rules are here. Rules cannot account for every single situation. But how someone uses their power and how someone uses their loophole determines their character, not only in my eyes, but the eyes of the community. And the community is watching. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's get to business here then. So if Commissioner Benito, if you'd like to start the process.
Yes, committees, 1.4.5, committees are essential to divide labor across the multitude of duties this commission has within its authority. And I know that Commissioner Wong made a comment on this.
So I would like, can we just speak freely now?
Yeah.
Please? Okay.
Sure.
So the comment is, so if you're saying the commissions are essential to divide labor, I thought the committees have special purposes. So I don't really understand what, and I agree that we have a labor flow issue, a workflow issue, but what is the meaning of the sentence? What is the purpose?
I would say that my suggestion for how we work through this is if you have something else you'd like to put in its stead, let's do that instead of debating the language. If you think that there should be something else here, then.
But I have to ask your intent because you wrote this, so I don't know what you mean by this. That's why I'm asking.
This has been in, was this in the original or did you write this?
This is not in the original.
No.
I mean, I think the intent is pretty clear. The committees are essential to dividing work of the different pieces of.
Rather than repeat what is there, I actually do not understand why the sentence is here. And I'm not, because I think the committees,
If you don't think it makes sense to have it there, we can take it out. My understanding of committees is that they are where the different parts of work of the commission and the different spheres, including accountability, training, is broken down and commissioners work on it, and then it goes back to the full commission. So again, I'm happy to remove this, or we can replace it with something else. But that is my understanding of what committees are.
So if I may, I'm looking at the rules that are on our website, and this is the very first sentence. The very first sentence. So it was not written by Commissioner Benito. It's been there. It was voted on previously, if you allow me to finish. So if you have, I think I agree that if you have a very specific language proposal, let's do it. Let's look at it.
I still don't know what divide labor means at this point. And I'm concerned about this because in the draft accountability rules, it talks about, let's be honest, some of the committees have a lot of work compared to other committees. So it's not going to be an equal division of labor. I mean, we can come back to it if there's other things. I just don't frankly understand why that sentence is there. And
It was already there.
It was already there, but rereading it, and so we're revising this whole rule again. We passed those things many months ago. We've revised a lot of those things. I'm just asking what your interpretation of, maybe that would be a better question. What is your interpretation of those?
I don't think it's the most important language in this rule, in this section, but it sounds like if the whole commission, like with any board or committee or commission, if the entire body were to deal with every single issue and not work in committees, that would be unmanageable. The idea, this essentially dividing labor across the duties, and I wouldn't write it exactly this way, but dividing labor across labor allows us to move forward and different people focus on different issues. So it is essentially dividing labor. I mean,
so I think I understand why I'm having trouble with the sentence. So we have a problem right now that a lot of the work is happening in the committee, sometimes work not to my full satisfaction of attention. I hope that dividing labor doesn't mean that someone from the policy committee, only the policy committee alone reads those policies, or only accountability does that. So I hope that it seems to suggest that, but I would hope that eventually when we have an accountability hearing, which could be very soon, that all of the commissioners have the subject matter expertise, have done all the homework in order to ensure that the hearing proceeds in a fair and equitable manner for the community member and the police officer. So that's my comment. I mean, I don't know if it is essential to change it, but we can move on. If I think of a better wording for this, we can move on.
Continue reading. Okay, the commission shall at minimum maintain the following active committees. First, police, and maybe let's stop after each one because I know that there are comments for each one. Police investigations, discipline and accountability committee, oversight of the disciplinary process, analysis of disciplinary and accountability data, lead committee for prepping evidentiary hearings related to disciplinary actions, and generation of reports related to discipline and accountability. And I know you had some suggestions you wanted to make, Commissioner Wong.
Or so I'm not, okay, so there were some punctuation errors, and I think we should just write in complete sentences. So I changed it to, this committee has primary oversight of the disciplinary process as well as the analysis of disciplinary and accountability data. And this is also the lead committee for prepping evidentiary hearings related to disciplinary actions and the generation of reports related to discipline and accountability. Looking at it right now, again, maybe we should better define what oversight means of the disciplinary process. And the analysis of disciplinary accountability data, I mean, I don't know, I guess records. Just as my perspective, as long as I'm still chair, I guess, of the accountability committee, I can say this, that the accountability committee is tasked as the central operating committee, that it looks at every single piece of problem that could affect the fairness of the system. And it has obviously unique bridges to policy, to training. Training used to be under accountability and with the outreach. So I would also ask that, because again, this is why I have this divide labor issue, because we had some arguments and discussions over which committee, policy or accountability has purview over things like, for example, the discipline matrix and the CBA amendment. I think that reasonably those would follow under accountability, but more and more seems to be going into policy, which I think doesn't balance the work and divide the labor properly, but also does not really match with the committee. So could we have and it seems like projects, I mean, ideally, again, I'm just going to say we have a very divided commission with power dynamics. I think we need to be a little bit more clear as to which responsibilities fall under which, because technically policy is Brady Giglio policy, and that is obviously housing or accountability, but it could be moved to policy. So if the better we define these things, the better down the future, in the future, if there's discussions and arguments about who gets what project, it could be better managed. So I don't know if Martin has any comments on this.
So, Commissioner, I would say that, so you are the chair of the accountability committee, so the language you wrote here was just sent to us today, and it looks fine to me. If you are okay with what you wrote, what you sent us earlier today, then you're the best person probably here to develop that. If you have any changes you'd like to make, certainly all ears, but
read it
yeah.
for Jason to be able to put in.
I have it,
yeah,
so
Jason.
I have it up, so all you have to do is.
I think that also with the other committees, I mean, do we ask the
But
committee
let's
chairs?
just go one committee at a time.
Okay,
So accountability is your committee, so
Right.
the committee you lead.
I
So
think it's a little bit narrow right now because it just says that we basically have oversight of the disciplinary process and analysis of disciplinary economy data and evidentiary hearings.
Are you working off what you wrote earlier? Because that's what we're saying we can
So-
put in.
So,
Yes,
so you already made edits, are you?
right.
No one is opposed to accepting your edits. I could check them now. So it will read, this committee has primary oversight of the disciplinary process as well as the analysis of disciplinary and accountability data with the punctuation corrected. This is also the lead committee for preparing evidentiary hearings related to disciplinary actions and the generation of reports related to discipline and accountability. So that is as you proposed it as the accountability chair. The committee is ready to accept it if you are.
I worked on a draft. This draft was sent to me yesterday, and I worked on this draft just this morning because I didn't have time. What I'm saying is that here's the problem. When you say here are the specific tasks of this one committee, it doesn't have a statement over actually the entire purpose of the committee. And so right now, as written, it technically says that we only have oversight of the disciplinary process, analysis of the data, and then hearings. To me, accountability, and we don't even have like the ability to make policy recommendations to policy. Like, what are we supposed to do with the analysis of disciplinary and accountability data after we make those assessments? So what I'm proposing is that we have a little bit more bridge after, like, I don't think we've even discussed these things. And I'm mentioning this not as a theoretical because Mr. Van Leer and I have had disagreements about what work, and you've also participated in it, and what work actually follows in a committee, because I think of the problems that policy and accountability have overlap. I'm happy to leave it as is, but I would like to add that maybe that these things are touching each other and dynamic, and they should not be used in any way to fight over work. I mean, that's just defying the entire point of these. What I don't see is overlap. An overlap would help because then you can actually work between committees and you can actually share the work. There's no touching of any of these committees upon each other. Do we see that? So I think that accountability, again, is the central operating committee. It has the ability to analyze the data, analyze the reports, and send recommendations. That's one thing that's missing, the communication between these committees. Send recommendations to policy, to training, to outreach. So I just don't want us to be, because quite frankly, here's why I am concerned, is that in my time as accountability chair, I have seen more and more work being taken away from accountability and moved into policy, which is controlled by Mr. Van Leer and Ms. Benito, and also with E.D. Goodbrick. You're there.
So to the chair, I just have to say, you have a framework that the
I'm not the
commission
chair
voted
anymore.
on.
I'm not the chair. Thank you.
And I'm addressing the committee. So I just want to be clear, there are conflictual statements being made right now. The commission adopted a framework, and there has been no work that has been stolen or moved or fought over in that framework. At this point, having reviewed the framework, all the committees created their own workload, right? So including the accountability committee, and Commissioner Wong wrote her own workload for her committee, and no one has impinged upon her workload, nor has any other chair impinged upon the work of another committee. Each piece of work you all defined in your own committees, and so far you are following your own workload guidelines. I don't want conflicting statements to be out there in the universe. That we have a defined work plan. It's called the CPC framework. Every committee is following their framework as designed, and there is not a conflict between committees for work at this time. So far, every committee has followed their specific guidelines. So we don't need to start fires where there are none. If someone wants to change the framework, they have the ability to do so. They have the ability to add or delete work. And the way the committees are defined have worked just fine up to this point. So we don't have to belabor detailing every single piece of information into what the committees are. Communication is very clear. It's up to chairs to communicate amongst each other. So, and the chairs have even proposed, perhaps you want to put it in here, having a coordination executive session between chairs on a monthly basis, which maybe want to put in here in the committees as an amendment to this, where the committee chairs will get together once a month and just talk about the workflow, right? So where there is any conflict, if any were to arise, they can manage that.
So, Commissioner Wong, it sounds like what you're proposing in this description is about how for example, the accountability committee could send or would send recommendations through the training, through other committees that are focused on specific issues. Would that address your concern, or, and then we're gonna go to Commissioner Benito.
I do think that there has to be some synergy between the committees.
Mhm.
What I'm concerned about is that, I hate to disagree with Edie Goodrick, is that there was a conflict because there were two discipline work groups, one in policy that I didn't realize it was, well, it was mentioned. It was mentioned, it's in the framework. And the main one was always housing or accountability, and a community member disrupted I don't think we necessarily had this conflict, but was trying to move work to policy. So there is an actual contradiction there. We've also disagreed about the CBA amendment. And I think it's just the very nature that policy and accountability touch a lot more than other things. So I would like I don't want and here's the thing, any commissioner should be able to take any data, do any project, the work that could be housed primarily in a committee does not necessarily, the committee doesn't own that work, right? Any commissioner should be able to take whatever data, whatever records are there and do their own work, do their own analysis. So I just don't want that to be a fight over, and what I see actually, frankly, is fights over things that are easy to do, low hanging fruit, and then the tough things, no one's really doing.
So I would like to focus on then the language that we'd like to see in this, rather than these more abstract discussions about.
So I would
who's
like
doing
to
what.
say that I
So
would propose that. Can I propose language?
sure.
So this committee, are you writing, Jason?
Yeah.
This committee also has the ability to make recommendations based on their analyses to policy training and outreach. And I think the other ones obviously too.
I would actually suggest, instead of making it a specific item in the accountability committee, just having something that says that, we recognize that the work of each of these committees is interconnected, and every committee has the right to make recommendations to other committees. Like I think that it all intersects, right? So if we see that there's a training issue that's coming up in training, that what we're seeing, a lot of confusion on a particular GPO, then, or through looking at a training, we identify an issue with the GPO, then the training committee can send a recommendation to the policy committee to say, hey, let's take a look at this. Can you guys take a look at this GPO? Or vice versa. We have a behavioral health work group under the policy committee, that if we see a trend in behaviors from officers or actions from officers that we think, hey, we saw in this case that we reviewed, or we are seeing this particular thing happen, we can then forward that to the accountability committee to say, hey, can you take a look at this case? We are concerned about this. So I think that it's not just specific to the accountability committee that all of these things are going to work together. So I would suggest having a more general statement saying that recommendations and requests can be made to committees.
And I think that's a good suggestion, but what happens when the two committees have conflicting information? Because the data that's being analyzed between the committees is different. Like, for example, training has more heuristic data from anecdotal data, maybe testimony from the officers. Accountability would have the more particulate actual data. So, I mean, we can add, if you want to suggest language that I think just that this is not, I mean, these are general guidelines, and that whatever, because there's so much overlap in the work of these committees, that these are not hard and fast rules, and they should not be used to totally house responsibilities within committees.
So I think that to answer your question of how can conflicts be handled, I think that we could, I like the idea of putting in an executive. I mean, I don't know if that's something that should go into the rule in terms of, thanks, Ryan. Ryan keeps us.
There's feedback, but there's more. I just
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, I'm distracted. One of the community members who is here is not feeling well and is in their car right now.
Oh.
Not sure. Rosie Pelfey is, I don't mean to make it public.
We
but-
can maybe turn up mics and speak a little louder.
No, it's not. No, it's not that.
Is it an emergency?
She's not well.
Oh, she's not feeling well. I
So
thought
you
she
just
wasn't here.
Unless you want to do it?
Yeah.
She said she's in her car. She's well.
Does she need EMS, Pete?
I don't know.
Or just, do you have your phone to text me?
EMS.
What's that?
Yeah, so who's we can't
Well,
operate
tell
without
me
the chair.
Let's take a 5-minute recess. Huh? I don't know. She doesn't answer.
I don't know.
I tried calling, she didn't answer.
She's right out. Oh,
Oh, okay.
so I got a text saying she was in her car.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I called a 5-minute recess, so if you want to reopen it. And then to answer your question, so they had mentioned that having an executive committee meeting of the chairs of the committees and the co-chairs, I think it's a great idea. I don't know if that would be institutionalizing it too much to put it in the rules, but I think that that is one place where a conflict could be handled. If there's disagreement between two chairs of, where a piece of work should live. I think the other place that, those conflicts can be resolved, hopefully they could be resolved between the chairs and between the committees. But again, if not, I think that executive or, I think worst case scenario, it goes to the full commission.
I have a question. So, executive committees, in my understanding, are able to, between monthly meetings, make decisions for the entire commission, without the full commission. So if we add that, considering what Robert's Rules defines as executive committees, we'll need to designate the powers. That will, again,
And I misspoke, maybe they are not calling it that. I just heard that.
I mean, that's probably the right term, and it's good for, my concern, I think it's good for moving things along. But again, Robert's Rules has to be adapted to the actual situation of a commission. We have a very divided commission with a lot of internal conflict. So we can write that, but again, we'll need to research what exactly Robert's Rule says. I do want to.
But also, if we define what it is and put what the rules are in it, then our rule trumps Robert's Rules.
Yes, but I'm saying, but we're introducing this at the table. I'm always very concerned about the balance of power. I do want to go back because I thought about it more. I would like to remove the first sentence because nobody's been able to really explain why it's there. And I think that it almost limits like what the committees are for by defining it to the exclusion of other things. So can we eliminate the first sentence, please, Jason? Do we need to vote?
Yeah.
Or we can just go
No,
on,
this
okay?
is just a conversation. We will approve
Okay,
the entire thing at the end if we get there.
all right, so, moving on, I guess, would you like to propose a statement about the kind of
Hey, why don't you give me a minute to I think better when I can write it out. So I'll write it out, and then if you want to move on to the next section, I can write that.
Yeah, unfortunately, Commissioner Adams, so, commissioners, I had you here. Why don't you, do you want to talk, we can go out of order. You want to talk about, do you have thoughts about what outreach committee, how to define that since you have been?
Yeah, I would probably, do you think that we should add maybe some of the other
Microphone.
Do you think that we should add some of the other responsibilities related to maybe, and I was looking for the framework online and I couldn't find it, but to recruitment and our duties to just like monitor some of the things with CPD. I think maybe add recruitment in there. And,
For which?
For outreach.
For outreach.
Yeah, good idea.
Sure.
Yeah. Jason, do you have a copy of the framework?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think right now it's.
I just
limited.
gave you one on Monday.
I know, it's in the car.
Right now, so I've changed this in part, but then this committee researches, and I think we need to specify how establishes high level.
Because he's the one making the live edits.
Well, the high level goals and objectives, it's not for community engagement. Those terms are very vague to me. And then I think
Thank you. This is the last thing.
I think outreach does more than community engagement. I think they are able to gather data from the community for us to use. For example, I actually even thought of a project for outreach that's appropriate. We've just received the exit interviews for the officers, and I would like. The exit interviews are, unfortunately for the division of police, are like less than 10 survey monkey questions that is very difficult to disambiguate. So one project, and I haven't discussed it with you, I'm sorry, Commissioner Zayat, or it's no longer that committee, was for us to just talk, and if the officers that are departing from the division would not talk to us, that we would interview them to get more targeted information about why they left the division, and maybe more information as to what is happening internal to the division, because we are losing officers at about 20 per month. And I know in my district, 6 officers left from one shift in the last month. So I think expanding community, maybe community and police engagement, it's division engagement would be good. So that's just one thought I had. So did you want to rewrite it in any way, or?
Yeah, I mean, just maybe add the piece about how we are working to aid with recruitment, and also we develop strategies for education, police reform education in the community.
Do you want to type it up and maybe send it to Mr. Gerber?
Yeah, I could do that.
And I would suggest maybe expanding it to division, and because I feel outreach could be that real bridge between the community
That's
and the
good.
division.
That's the purpose, yeah.
All right.
All right. So looking at, police policy committee, I've just been thinking about this because this is not, I hadn't really spent time looking at this definition, but as we look at the work we've done, we could be more specific on, I know there's questions about what oversight means, but, looking at the oversight of police policy and procedure, including general police orders and policy-focused divisional notices that fall under the scope of the commission would be one way to look at that. We have not yet done audits of performance of general police orders. Executive Director Goodrich, could you speak to what, if we need to be more precise about what that means?
So audits of performance of a police general order. So you can pick one related to search and seizure, right? And you can pull all the data, all their stop forms, and see if they're comporting, right? So that's a good example of that. So there's one, field investigations. You can look at all their stops and approaches forms and see if they comport with the policy. Police pursuits is another one. You can do a review of all the pursuits in the air, pull the forms on it, and see if they comport with policy. So that's an example. There's so you feel any particular GPO, you would be able to audit, performance.
Do you feel like this language is specific enough and that's clear enough?
Well, I guess the only thing you would have to decide is if you want that to be an accountability, with the points that Commissioner Wong has raised about, where is the line between accountability and policy. So considering policy committee can be so busy with GPO review, You may want to move audits of performance of general orders to accountability committee, if you so choose. So it's something worth discussing.
I think what might be helpful is that we should go through the charter, and there's one component that I've noticed is missing, and that is who has purview over the recruiting and hiring policies. That is one thing that's missing. And I would maybe, to reframe this, we should look at the primary documents that every committee, or primary kind of original documents and data that every committee is dealing with. Then we can decide what are the actual workflows. For example, if it is GPOs and directives and other notices, that's pretty clear under policy. If the accountability committee is already looking at disciplinary data, we're going to have that information about like GPO kind of performance of general police orders, because we'll see if officers, regardless if they're guilty or not, if there's multiple charges over one GPO, then we'll be able to alert. Rather than just simply like punish the officer, we need to alert policy and say, hey, is there something in the policy that is not clear? Is there something that is hard for the officers to apply? Because our goal is that the officers are able to behave in a way in comport with the general police orders. But quite frankly, they're written in such a way that's very hard for a human being sometimes in the field to enact. And that would also be, and quite frankly, policies are just things written on paper. If they don't affect police behavior, they can't affect police kind of accountability. And I just generally think of human beings. There's going to be a cultural kind of manifestation of how that policy is enacted. And that's just an anthropological statement. This is not going to be something hard and fast. So I'm looking, this could be done, just I'm looking for the policy committee not only to edit the policies, but to be able to take whatever data from accountability and say, hey, the lived experience of these officers is that something's wrong with this policy and how they are able to enact and behave this policy and adapt in a way to write these policies. I think Mr. Jackson has pointed out multiple times, it is very, very difficult for an officer to follow these policies to the T. And that, of course, affects discipline and unequal discipline.
I like the idea of expanding the outreach committee to include, I think, some of these issues, including getting feedback from officers, understanding, I think hiring and retainment practices. I think it makes a lot of sense to have that under outreach.
To the chair, it's already functionally under outreach. They've already talked about doing recruitment. The other thing under outreach right now that isn't addressed is community engagement of the Division of Police and assessing that. So there is under the consent decree, we have a paragraph that requires us to do a community engagement assessment. In our framework, it's already under the outreach's plan for the second half of 2024 to do assessment of the community engagement in relation to the division and its return on its investment in that regard.
So I want to also just make sure recruitment would be separate from HR policies, right? That would fall under, like if there's an HR policy, that would fall under policy committee, because recruitment is about the strategies, the marketing strategies, the recruitment strategies. I mean, we call it a policy, but would you, Mr. Van Leer, think that like HR policy, like say, I mean, I proposed one, it was very provocative that, for example, there was a problem of the FBI noted in a 2016 report that there was a problem of white supremacists infiltrating the police. And I just proposed a policy that we say if we are found to be on these watch lists and the FBI is not a radical organization, they could be fired. So that would be an HR policy, like a proposed HR policy. And that's not theoretical, because many elder Black residents have told me that in the 80s, the officers in Cleveland were wearing swastika buckles on many of their pins on their regalia. So I'm just asking, would that type of policy follow? I think we need to really be careful with our words, because we're seeming to call everything a policy at this point.
Right, well, I think that's up for a discussion, but I do think it makes sense to have this committee potentially be sort of like the conduit between some of the other committees on very specific policy issues. I mean, I'm not saying it has to be one way exactly or the other, but I think there's a logic to having that there being a primary point of contact over this authority that we have over policy with division. So that's my thought. It's not like a hard and fast, like it has to be this way, but I think that interaction between committees is really important, and we already have that with cross membership, for example. But I think the more we can make sure that that's how we do things, would probably make sense.
I have a draft for the language, so I don't know if we want to
Go for
wait.
it.
Okay. So I said commission work may touch multiple committees and require collaboration between multiple committees and require collaboration between committees. Each committee may between committees. Each committee may always make recommendations and requests to fellow committees to review or consider issues. If there is a disagreement between committee chairs or committee members about division of tasks between committees that cannot be worked out between the committee chairs, then the issue can be addressed in a meeting with the commission co-chairs and committee chairs or at a full meeting of the commission. Or a meeting of the full commission.
Can you email any of that so I can pull it up and
Just send it to us.
Can I make a suggestion? We, the next two committees don't have descriptions. I would really feel more comfortable because I can't remember everything of the charter. Can we just make sure that we're covering all of the charter language, at least for these things? We can rewrite them because I think editing at the table to this extent is.
I would say one thing is unless there's something in the framework right now that is not being addressed in what is laid out here, I don't think we should be adding anything here that is not already in the framework. But there, it says here that other committees may be formed as necessary by the commission. I think that's an issue of needing to potentially form new committees.
Well, I don't think it's new committees. I think that actually we should probably house them as much as possible. I mean, we can go through the charter at this point. I want to just emphasize, since this is a revision of the rule, it has to go over a 9-13 vote in the full commission. It then has to go through another perfection through the minutes, another meeting, and then it's effective 15 days after the fact. I would like to get it right the first time so we don't keep going back to the full commission. So, I mean, I can read the responsibilities to make sure. Why don't we just do that right now? And could somebody come up with a budget and grants committee definition?
I can do that.
And then rules if you want to do that. I guess it's just internal rules and bylaws. That's probably
I also rewrote the training committee one. So maybe before you do that, can I read that to Jason?
Okay.
I put for the training committee. This committee has oversight of approval, recommendations, and audits of training topics, police training practices, and training curriculum. And I can send that in an email to Jason.
yeah, it's easier if you send it.
Can you read that again, please?
This committee has oversight. This committee has oversight of general. I'm so sorry. I went to the wrong one. Here we go. This committee has oversight of approval, recommendations, and audits of training topics, police training practices, and training curriculum.
This committee has oversight over approval.
Over the approval, recommendation.
What does oversight over the approval mean? Is the final approval?
We give approval on training, but now that has changed a little bit, and now it's going to the full commission as well. So previously, the training committee would approve a police training.
Right. So we can't. So does the police training have to be approved by the full commission?
Now it does, but it did not before. And also, I'm not. Yeah. So I can.
Okay.
But we still oversee the process because we review it first and then send it to the full commission. So I think that it was still on.
Okay.
Here, let me.
Why don't you
edit it
work it and then?
So we're gonna keep working on these descriptions. Sorry.
Do you want to go through the
Do we
charter?
want to do that right now? We can. I mean,
Or we
I thought
could
were gonna do it
also
offline.
take this offline and,
I think it's unlikely that we're gonna
okay, so why don't we do that?
finalize it tonight, so we might as well do it offline. It's probably more efficient.
I'm happy to make a list of the responsibilities and maybe we can just
Sure.
put them in a chart and then we can actually just probably put in a list. Maybe it's a bulleted list, might be easier than writing these sentences and take it directly from the charter language. And I think that might cover
Sure.
everything.
All
Okay,
right,
great.
so then we have other committees may be formed or abolished as deemed necessary.
What was my comment?
What was your comment there?
So to the chair, before you get to other committees, I just have a recommendation. I didn't see, we've used ad hoc committees several times now.
Mhm.
So I think it's worthy of consideration to define ad hoc committees a little bit. I think that we've had some issue with ad hoc committees. What does it mean? How do they work? Are they, what are their rules for meeting? So it's worth mentioning that has come up several times. And Commissioner Wong, you have an extreme amount of experience having served on one and then
Another multiple one.
Also, you
Yes,
mentioned here the
The
internal
internal training
yeah.
committee, because I think we'll probably need continual education, right? As the, okay, so let's.
So we'll add that to the description of that.
Okay, so my comment for other committees may be formed or abolished as necessary by the commission is that what standards are they going to be? Is it Robert's Rule standards? Is forming or and
Standards
abolishing?
meaning what?
Like what are the criteria to forming and abolishing committees deemed necessary? There's multiple like criteria here. It has to be deemed necessary, and then it can be maybe formed or deemed necessary. Is forming, as I said, is forming and abolishing committee arbitrary, or is there a process for that? I mean, that's obviously the process of just voting
I think
for that.
some of that could be answered in the ad hoc committee piece, but I think there's probably more that, we should have, if we want to be specific, we can talk about when specific needs arise or when something comes up that needs to be addressed outside of full commission. I think in general, that will probably be an ad hoc committee, but it's quite possible that an issue will come up that needs a more permanent group working on it.
I have a question. Can another committee that's formed that's not ad hoc?
So to the chair, if you know, committees can be formed. This is just your rules saying these are standing committees, right?
Right.
So you have two ways to form a committee. Rules can form a committee, adding it to the rules permanently, right? Or a committee could be based on need, right? So we've had several need-based committees where they were just formed through motions, right? They're not intended to be standing committees, or they're formed with a certain amount of time, right? So if you're forming something, that's why we need to figure out what is an ad hoc committee, right? Did we form a real committee if we put 3 commissioners on it? I think the word ad hoc is confusing because what does that even mean? We put 3 commissioners, so technically we formed a committee, right? So if you make a motion to form a committee, let's say you decided that policy's too busy, right? So the commission then decides, well, let's form a committee specifically on an issue that could be construed as policy, like maybe recruitment and retention, right? Maybe it becomes such a hot button issue that you guys decide we just want to do for the next 6 months, have a committee meet 6 times to address specifically this, right? You can do that without needing to make it a formal standing committee in your rules, right? And you can abolish a committee that's not in the rules based on workload. It happens frequently, but
Isn't that called a special committee
you
per
can,
Robert's rules?
you can
It's the
call
same
it,
thing.
because this is our rule, we can
Okay.
call it what we like.
Okay.
But yes, if it has a name, that's a
Well,
good.
think of a really special name if you're gonna
Yeah.
make it your own.
Extra
right?
special committee.
Yeah, extra
Yes.
special.
That's a good point, special committee, but you guys have called them
Or
ad
subcommittee,
hoc
special,
committees, right?
Special subcommittee.
Yeah.
Well, I think the subcommittee is
It's
a
under
committee
the
underneath an
committee.
existing committee,
the
whereas a
committee
special,
forms.
a
Yeah.
special committee is like a separate entity.
And we've never used subcommittees, we've used work groups, and we've kept it to 2
Right.
commissioners so that it does not qualify as a committee, right? So that is technically what could be construed as a subcommittee, except it's limited and it's not, requirements are less, so.
I have a question for Martin. I don't know if you can answer it. We did have an ad hoc committee for trying to secure the lawyer. It was Mr. Van Leer, Mr. Early, and I, and then we realized we're all 3 on the policy committee. But I said, if we're not discussing policy, where can we still form an ad hoc committee? So I don't know what the answer to is from a public commission standpoint. Are there going to be quorum? Do other committees' quorum rules usurp the ability of certain configurations of commissioners to be able to be an ad hoc committee together?
I can look into that. I don't know the answer right off the bat, but I think you all have a rule that says that you can't have more than a certain number of commissioners on a certain subcommittee in order for that, just like Jason was referencing.
Mhm.
But yeah, we can pose the question. I can look into it later.
There's also sunshine law issues there as well, so I think it has to be the layers
So
of
unless we have
of
two,
Robert's rules, whatever.
And that's exactly where I would go.
Okay,
otherwise ad
So-
hoc would be two people at most, right?
Well, technically, I mean, you also now have a quorum of the policy committee here.
I know, so that's why I think like, but let's
but
not
it's,
just,
this is the rules committee and it's a quorum of the rules committee, and that's where we're at.
so if we don't vote on policy, we're fine.
Well, yeah, we'd have to declare multiple meetings at the same time, and we're not talking about policy, so I don't think that's really such a main issue. So, other committees may be formed or abolished. So have we addressed that question? I mean, I think as we look at defining ad hoc committees, special committees, that will largely do. I think we do want to have some language that gives us some flexibility that, committees can be formed as needed. I don't think we need to, I'm not sure how much we need to do to define exactly which, because if we say these are the reasons you could form a committee, for deemed necessary for me implies that there is a need for it. And I suspect that we won't be, creating lots of committees because we have to staff them all. We have to put members on them. So this language seems fine to me.
But by the commission, I would say by a majority vote, the commission, is that what we want? Is that,
Well, I mean,
unless the
Right now-
subcommittees could be, determined by, maybe we should just have, look into it.
well, when the rules are silent, then it's, we have a rule that says that motion's carried by a majority of the commission. And so I think, we can spell it out, but I don't think it's necessary.
But, not opposed, it just,
But if the rules are silent and Robert's rule says something else, I think we should.
no, but our
No, our
rule
rules
says
are not
that
silent.
majority unless it's, the rules being changed.
Any motion,
It's
I
any
know, but-
motion
by
is
a majority.
That's what our
Yes,
rules
but
say.
Martin, would you be able to look that up? Because if Robert's rules, we also say that Robert's rules prevail. So if
But
Robert's rules,
no, Robert's rules do not prevail.
Our rules prevail over
Unless
Robert's.
we're
there's-
silent.
unless, so
Silent.
I'm saying this is,
But
if,
in
if
our
we're
rules,
silent-
it says a majority for every vote except for when rules are changed. And then there's something around the committees and the co-chair stuff, but our rules are pretty specific about what's needed. So we could say it here, but it's somewhat redundant.
I understand that when we passed that rule, I don't think you were on the committee at that time. It was just for ease. I'm just saying that there's other things, like, for example, when we get to the removal process, Robert's, I'm just saying.
All motions, unless it's otherwise specified in our rules, would pass by a majority. That's in our rules. Because our rules are not silent on how motions are passed, then it would not go to Robert's rules.
No, but I understand that, but I'm saying in certain scenarios, you have to set a different, if you want to set a different barrier for that, you will have to set that.
Yes.
And then unfortunately, that means until the situation comes up, unless you can foresee it, and this is my worry, is that Robert's rules, though it's imperfect, probably set out a lot of scenarios. So I think maybe we need to define certain scenarios where Robert's rules is higher than a majority.
But I feel like our rules, unless I'm misunderstanding something, our rules are pretty specific about the votes that are needed. So if you want to say majority vote here, that's fine, but our rules
not
already
like
say, I'm confused.
Yeah,
We're talking about this one line and I feel like
It's fine. I'm
bringing
confused
something
on what
else.
we're even talking about here, but I think just because my point is that Robert's rules may not be silent on a situation that is considered at least a best practice.
Whether or not Robert's rules is silent doesn't matter if
I
our rules
understand
have a
that,
rule.
but
right?
Can I finish, please?
Sure.
If Robert's rules is not silent on a situation that doesn't maintain, and there's an issue because we have a lot of dissension and we saw Robert's rules, I don't know what it would say in what occurred earlier before in the meeting, but I just don't think that in a divided commission with this many dynamics that just majority rules on everything is very good for the health of the commission.
So would you like this to have a different
Not
threshold?
this
So
specifically.
which line are we,
We're talking about
I'm
the
just-
other committees are formed
Look.
or abolished as deemed necessary. So do you want that to have a majority
Look.
vote, or are you saying you'd like a different
Let me
threshold for this?
just say this. If you have majority fiat in everything, you can use that to overcome anything in Robert's rules that does not have majority.
Which is why I'm
fiat.
asking you on this particular issue that we're talking about right now, if you would like a different threshold or if you would like it to be a majority vote.
That's a separate question, but it is, I think you need to be clear about this.
That's the question at hand right now is other committees may be formed or abolished as deemed necessary by the commission. Do we want to specify something other majority? or
Well,
not?
what if,
That's
what
the
if the
question.
committee wants to form a committee, a subcommittee? That's usually, in Robert's rules, I know the committee forms a subcommittee. It doesn't require, for example, we formed those those work groups that are subcommittees. We didn't do that through a majority vote. The committee just did that. The committee chair just said, these are the work groups. Are we gonna do that here? Because it seems like if that is considered a committee, unless we're naming it a
Not a
work
committee.
group.
The work groups are not a committee, they're.
And there's a section on work groups that talks about
And my
that.
concern is if there's a committee that needs to be formed right away, we have to wait for a monthly meeting for the commission to vote on it, or what is the standard here?
So so can you give an example? So I'm trying to understand. So we're talking about other committees. Only the main commission can form a committee. So are we talking about adding such a thing as a subcommittee, which we don't have right now? So if you're proposing the committee to have the ability to form a committee, that is not addressed in our rules. So
My general comment is, there's so many scenarios that are for us to just use majority fiat for everything. There's so many scenarios of
Yes,
Robert's
but that's not
rules.
that's not in this rule where we have majority.
We're talking about.
But you're saying everything's majority, so if
But
it's
that's,
silent.
but, no, but we're trying to like finish this
So, okay,
one
what would
thing
you,
without
what
going
would you
into
like
it.
to do? A majority vote, but the problem is then you will need to go to the full commission for every single committee. How do you respond?
I would agree. I would agree with that. I think if there is a really pressing, I'm having a hard time imagining a situation where we would need to immediately form a committee in less than 30 days, where there wasn't an issue where commissioners could come together
Mhm.
and work on something prior to that meeting where that would be necessary. And I think that if we're forming a committee for the whole commission, which is what we're talking about, I do think that should come from a vote of the full commission. I think it makes sense to have it be a majority vote, but I'm open to other suggestions.
I think that we've already seen actually this happen because we had to go through multiple motions to get an ad hoc committee to designate the people that would first be able to canvass for our independent attorney, and second, to effectuate the contract. So that started, I think, October 25th. That has only been settled 4 months later. And that is because we have to, and here's the problem, for a special meeting, as I understand, to be formed, it requires a petition from the quorum of the commissioners or the co-chairs to decide, right? Is that the two scenarios? I just think that you could possibly hold up work that is responsive, that needs to be done. So that's already one indication, 4 months for that. And I'm assuming if we had gotten quicker votes, we would have moved faster.
I would disagree with your description of that situation. I think that the reason why it took 4 months was not because we were unable to meet to make a committee. I think it was because of the changing requirements from the law department.
Well, that's the same thing, isn't it?
It's
Whether
not
it's
the
from
same
us, whether it's from us or expectations from the law department, you have to take the steps every single month to effectuate these things. I think it's
So
just.
to Commissioner, I'm trying to understand, are you trying to have a fast track way to form a committee without needing the vote of the full commission? Is that what you're trying to bring forward here? Because
Or just
we're
another,
looking at what, because you're touching on other rules that aren't part of 1.4.5, right? So we can't, while they're relevant, maybe we're not editing those right now. So if the issue is, how do we quickly form a committee if we need to evaluate something quickly? Am I hearing that correctly? Are you looking for a methodology in the rules where the full commission doesn't have to form the committee, that it can be formed by some other methodology?
well, maybe there's another issue, is that we might need to change the special meeting requirement, because I think it's, for example, we could have a situation that we have a conflict of interest that requires immediate independent legal expertise. And then if that incident occurred right after the first meeting, we would be delayed. Say it's a disciplinary issue or something like that's very immediate. It would take another month to form the ad hoc committee, or it would take a special meeting to do that.
And what I would suggest, I think that, again, what we're trying to decide here is how committees are formed. So I hear what you're saying, which is that in a very specific situation, which has to do with how we obtain legal counsel, the law department has listed out a requirement that is formed in an ad hoc.
No, they didn't.
They did not.
It was not
Okay.
ad hoc, we just called it that. I mean, they just said who, I don't think that the committee was even necessary. It was just something we needed
So
to
the
have
committee
facts.
wasn't necessary, so then it wouldn't, then that situation would not be relevant.
But my
We would not
point,
need to do that in order to form.
but the whole point is Robert's rules. If we want to call it a work group or ad hoc committee, whatever, it has another way that the committee can form this smaller
So-
group.
Right,
to
but
the-
that's under work groups, which is a different part of the rule.
I'm not saying it's under work, but I'm just saying the scenario is that there could be a scenario that you need somebody other than the full commission, the full body, in order to start a committee, and you're gonna have to wait a month at this point.
So
what
what
is-
would you, I mean,
I would
what
say
do
that
you,
maybe if the committee has some ability that the committee can decide.
I don't think that
form a
one
committee of
committee
itself.
should be able to create a committee of the full commission.
So that would be a subcommittee. So if a
Sure.
committee can establish a subcommittee,
Of
so,
itself.
so you only have 5 people to work with, right? So you're talking about a subcommittee being what, 3 people? Because 2 would make it a work group, right? So you have a sweet spot there where if you have, but even that doesn't work because if you created a subcommittee of 3, you're a quorum of the whole committee. So we have a problem with the way we're thinking here. If a committee were to spawn a subcommittee, right? The problem that we have is we already create work groups, so that's safe because you have 2 people, right? So you would just call it a work group. If you wanted to do a subcommittee, the problem you have is what would be its purpose? If you put 3 people into it, it's a quorum of the whole committee. We have such small committees of 5 people that subcommittees really doesn't work very well in our model. So I think I'm not certain what we're trying to achieve with breaking off from a committee, a smaller committee, right? And if you're looking for a way to quickly act, we already have 1.7.5, which is emergency meetings, right? In certain circumstances, an emergency meeting may be called, and this follows Ohio Sunshine Law. There's such a thing as an emergency meeting. An emergency meeting is convened because a situation requires immediate official action. For this type of meeting, the notice requirement is immediate. So we could say, we have such a pressing issue, we're telling the public and the media, and one of the requirements is you have to tell the media when you're having a special meeting, right, or an emergency meeting. The members of the commission must immediately notify all public stakeholders through its media channels and members of the media. So it's essentially a meeting that's a press conference that's called in a hurry, and you can do business there under Ohio law. So you do have a provision to quickly form to address an issue, right? But it would still, and if you wanted to make a new committee in an emergency circumstance, because there was such a pressing conflict, you would just use this emergency meeting and you wouldn't have to wait a month. You can also use the special meeting, which would mean, you give more notice, and usually our special meetings don't happen in less than a 7-day window, but we've been able to move fast. So if we had an issue where we had to make a new committee in a hurry, I think we have multiple ways to do it. The question still isn't resolved though, is do you want to change the voting standard for establishing a committee, which you also raised? So there's a couple of different points raised here that are not, that raise other issues that are either already in the rules or would cause the idea of a committee spawning a subcommittee just because we're so small, it's not practical for us.
I hear you, but even in that emergency, immediate pressing needs, it seems subjective. Can I make a general, I don't know exactly what I want to do, but can I make a general request through executive director that, Martin, when you look through this and when things are in conflict with Robert's rules, or would you be able to tell us what their best practices are? So we know, because we've already have like one conflict, I think, with some of the procedures to naming committees, but I think we can move on.
So to the chair, you can't have a conflict with Robert's rules in your own rules. Your rules prevail. So there is no conflict. Once you create a rule, it eliminates whatever Robert's rule says because it's a hierarchy of order. So the law is first, our rules are second, and then the third is, so you really, if there's a conflict, the conflict is resolved by whatever your local rule says.
I think you're not listening to me.
So maybe that's a wrong word, but you can't have
what I'm saying is that we seem to be making rules in very stressful, dynamic situations, and Robert's rules has probably thought of every stressful dynamic situation and human nature, and I would like to make sure that we obey best practices and balance the power, as always, in the commission. There are things that I think that Robert's Rules, for example, requires, just like the U.S. Senate, 2/3 removal process. Right now, what's being suggested is a majority removal process.
I would like us to stay like on subject.
But
I
I'm
feel
just
like we're
saying that,
getting
guys.
all over
Okay,
the
let's
place. So
move
if I
on.
could, yeah, so right now, the question we were looking at was other committees may be formed or abolished as deemed necessary by the commission. Are we okay with that language?
Yeah. Would you like there to be a different voting standard other than a majority for this?
For that particular thing?
I would like another, I would think that we could look into, Martin could do a fast track for committees in case, because if it doesn't meet.
Okay, yeah, we
that's
heard
it.
you, we heard you. So we'll look into it. We'll figure it out. So next up, we have committees must consist of at least 3 commission members, but not more than 5. Only commission members officially designated as serving on the committee are eligible to vote in committee. So,
I also just want to do a time check.
Yeah,
We have
I
9
was gonna
minutes
get
left
there.
of the meeting. There
So we
is
should
a
do some
second
time.
public comment.
I do,
period.
yeah, you're
And-
ahead of me on that, but I was gonna go there. Let's just try to do one more thing here.
Are you going to do public comment?
Yes. All right, fine, we'll just forget this. Is there any public comment? Lou, go ahead.
Let's look at the next.
Lou, again, sorry. Have you seen what you guys have done in this meeting now? The discussion right now you have is much more productive than the discussion in the past in the rules committee meetings. The trouble here is the things we are dealing with in police commission, lots of them do carry different natures than what you are used to in the nonprofit organizations. The work here requires less emotion in the process. You do need to have a passion for the ultimate goal, but the work needs more detailed, analytical type of thinking. The mindset has to be different. So now, at least you guys can actually see all the words. In the past, because everybody was busy, I could tell, and other people could tell, lots of time when you guys came to the meeting, you were already tired, maybe. You did not really read the material in advance. So the discussion was always during the meeting, and sometimes the personality conflict became the focus instead of the content you guys are supposed to discuss. So now, this time, you guys actually have done more work than the meetings you guys had before. I don't mind you guys sometimes need to cancel meetings because up to this moment, police department has never been cooperative. When you need document, when you need someone to come here to give you information, either they don't offer it or they don't even respond to you. And today, you guys finally understand listening is a very good thing to do in this kind of meeting. Diversity is also important when you have a different type of way of thinking. Now you understand the issue is not about whose personality is more pleasant. It's about how complex the issues you guys have to deal with. And you have to be calm. You guys really have to listen to one another. If you cannot understand, ask again. Terry Wong has never been offended by your questions. But when she addressed a point, lots of times you guys think that she's picking on you guys. That's not the case. These things are very, very close, basically, to actual legal work. How do you think every code in the federal government, constitution, all the federal registration, all those rules, how do you think these things got established? You guys cannot have a meeting just trying to pass everything and to think that, oh, I have accomplished a lot. No, this type of work, accountability type of work, disciplinary work, rules, these kind of work, it takes a long time. You guys really have to be calm, listening to one another in order to have a meaningful, productive discussion. Yes, it's slow. You guys cannot pass too many lines in one meeting. However, this is the work actually needed for the future. So you are actually doing for the greater good. Don't be frustrated just because Terry Wang is picking on you. She doesn't mean to pick on you. She has no time to do that. She did lots of homework to come to the meeting, and she's trying to show you, here are the flaws. I have been attending the discipline work group. We have read the rules the police departments they have been using. Do you know how horrible these rules are? One thing called always on duty. Look at you, working 8 hours, driving back and forth. By the time you come here, you are tired. And you want a police officer to be always on duty, even they clocked out from their double shift? This is the reason why police force has a horrible culture, very bad command channels for people to go through to get their voice heard. So today, you guys have to be the example to go through these obstacles, to understand the work you should be proud of yourself doing. It's very different. But remember, don't compromise. Don't collaborate. Don't make a decision on doing any of these first. Look at the content right in front of you on each meeting. If you do not have time to prepare yourself ahead of time, fine. But at least when you come in, please, listening to one another. Today's discussion are way better. And I do have to appreciate you guys do police yourself a little bit. Sometimes you think maybe you are taking a little too long for a particular point. But don't hurry up, just try to move on. You really have to get these points covered, resolved. Otherwise, your time will be wasted because later it will come back to bite you. This is the reason why today Terry Wang mentioned a good example. Trying to find an attorney for commission only. How to form that process. That's actually a very good example. That's the work you guys have gone through yourself. But still, you need to listen to her to figure it out what you thought and what she's saying, they match or they don't. Don't just react just because it's Terry Wang saying it. You guys have done a better job today. Thank you very much. Thank you for your listening, and you really learn faster. And we do need you guys to learn even faster because too much work accumulated. The community has all these histories, traumas for decades. Sorry, you take a position which gives you a burden, a huge burdens on your shoulders, your back, your head, all the time. So you have to be on duty all the time, just like police officers. Thank you very much.
I'm going to say we're going to extend just for public comment. Looks like Mr. Martin, Ms. Palfy, and then we're going to have to just check in real quick around next steps and how we're going to move this forward next meeting.
Chris Martin, City of Cleveland. I was waiting whether I was going to go back up here or not. I'm going to try and be quick. Mostly my debate was, I think actually Lou ended up saying a lot of what I wanted to say. Then it occurred to me, like I have chaired meetings that Lou has been a member organizations that Lou has been a member of, and I can tell you, Lou annoys me so much sometimes. Um, and I find that Lou, goes on way too long, way too often. But there is something valuable every time Lou speaks. And I'm sharing that experience now here in this public comment because I think it should be instructive to all of the committee members here, to all of the commissioners here. We can all be annoying sometimes. And we can, get in each other's way. But the thing that we should be doing is holding police accountable for their abuses.
Thank you. First, I want to recognize the staff who continue to work 12-hour days. You are very much appreciated. And with all due respect, I have some disagreements with some of the opinions that have been shared. Excuse me. It's okay to be annoying every now and then, but not at every meeting. And I was out in the hall and I came back in here, and as far as I'm concerned, it sounded like what you guys were talking about was really important. And it probably should have happened in a previous rules meeting that maybe wasn't had or you couldn't get to because, again, you had a discussion like this. And the problem is, this was Exhibit A, and I encourage you to forward it to the rest of the commissioners. This was Exhibit A of why Commissioner Wong should no longer be a commissioner, in my opinion. The irony is, you're one of the hardest working people, and if you talk to commissioners, if you talk to the public, they agree with you on most of what you bring up, most of your opinions. The problem is the execution. So nobody has a problem with you bringing up, even if it's every single time, every single agenda item, nobody has a problem with you saying, I disagree with it and why. But when somebody tries to move the meeting along or do something else, you have to keep going, okay? And as you all know, I was a member of the City of Cleveland Mental Health Response Advisory Committee that was created as part of the consent decree for over 7.5 years. And I was the only person in 7.5 years who ever voted no on something. And it wasn't comfortable to be in that position. But you know what? I knew that I couldn't fight every battle. I couldn't die on every hill. And so I had to pick and choose my battles. And that is the problem here, is that we do need more collaboration. But the thing is all of you need to collaborate. And that includes you, Commissioner Wong. I appreciate all your hard work, but the thing is that you have to realize that when you share your opinion and you see that there are 12 people who don't agree with you, you've shared your opinion. It's noted for the record. The public gets to see it. But then that's it. Move on. That is the problem. Okay, so now you're a roadblock, and as far as I'm concerned, this showed exactly why that it's a problem. And I also want to thank Martin. I'm sorry, I can't remember your last name, but I like I said before, you're going to have a trial by fire, and I appreciate. I saw you at the City Council Public Safety meeting. I think it was like your second day. So I don't know what you're doing, but I know you're working hard, and I hope that you're looking at everything and using your brilliant legal mind. And also, I would suggest looking at the sunshine laws. Mr. Goodrick is right about what he was saying about special meetings and emergency meetings, but I think in general there's a fundamental misunderstanding among all the commissioners. And finally, I said this to Commissioner Wong, I don't know how many times last year, you guys need to all get a copy of Robert's Rules. You need a parliamentarian to come in and give you a class on parliamentary procedure, okay? Because not everybody knows Robert's Rules. And so I think that's something that I hope the new leadership will look at doing. Thank you.
Is there any more public comment? Are we? Okay. So I do want us to think about real quickly, next steps. Our next meeting is March 6th, Wednesday, March 6th. In the meantime, we need to figure out how we can advance some of these drafts and answer some of the questions that we raised. So let's make a point of working on that. Any questions or final thoughts?
So I have a question, and maybe Martin can answer this. So in the absence of this rule being passed, what are, I guess, there's Robert's rules with, because I think it was immediate concern of Ms. Rodriguez and a lot of other commissioners, because here we have a bereft committee of 3 deciding something, that it has ramifications. There are other committees with 2, like 3 and 2. What can we do in the meantime? I guess we can suspend the rules in the full commission meeting and do something about that. But I know that there are commissioners that really urgently, once another thing was discussed is that we didn't get to the ex officio part. Most ex officio members can serve on committees. So both Dr. Adams, if they can, because if this rule is going to take probably at least another meeting to pass and 2 more months to actually fully be enacted, that's 3 months of the committees not being populated. So.
And to your point, I would like to add that we need this rule passed because it also has the terms under which we would reelect committee chairs. So I think the rule currently states that it would be February. So if it's now it's going to be March, and so I do agree that we probably have to
So
figure
to the
something
chair,
out.
you can have a special rules committee meeting to move this faster if you chose between now and March. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to wait a month. There's no mandate to do that. You can do more meetings to move rules forward. We did that at the beginning, if you remember, to advance the book. So
I think we should probably have a.
Yeah, we can look at our schedules and figure out when we can meet. If we can extend for a few more minutes, let's do that right now. So we're on Wednesdays. I know Wednesdays tend to be.
Well, I mean,
already-
let me
Oh,
just.
excuse me. Okay, go ahead.
If I could just lay out what could happen, is that is this a standard operating procedure that before a rule was passed, that we just majority, because I have a accountability meeting, I think on the 16th. I don't think the committee members there, although Ms. Benita, do you have any intention to try a motion for my removal from that? I'm just asking you openly for my removal accountability. I'm asking not because I want to retain power, because we have a case coming up, 2 cases. I don't think anybody in that committee, short of Mr. Tura, has the experience to deal with it. So I would just like to ask you on the record, because of your actions today, which I disagree with, and Mr. Van Leers, do you intend to do that at the meeting?
I'm not sure that this is the conversation that's really relevant to my
It's relevant
questions.
to accountability work.
I would say that this is the rules committee. We're just talking about scheduling another meeting, and I think that we're gonna stay focused on that.
Could you allow Ms. Benita to answer?
No, this is not really a
thought she
conversation
doesn't
that
want to
needs to happen here. So I would say if we want to set our next meeting, so we can take this up before March 6th, our next scheduled meeting, I think we should do that.
We have many meetings since then.
So what our schedule is, only 3 of us, we can figure out.
to the chair, next week is full of meetings already.
Mhm.
So we have committee meetings or work group meetings every night next week. So you're looking at the week of the 19th if you want to add an additional meeting in the evening, right? So evening is the barrier. If you can do, we also don't have a mandate that it always has to be in the 6 o'clock hour. So if you feel it's that important, you can do a noon meeting on a day. You can be flexible, right? So just keep that in mind too, that the time is open to flexibility as well.
And there's also some evening meetings discussed for a special meeting of the full commission.
Right.
So
Yeah, and that
a
has
daytime meeting, if we could make that work, that might make sense.
I could do Thursday, the 15th during the day.
Thursday the 15th, I have 2 meetings. So I don't know what during the day means.
What?
What does during the day means? I have meetings from 5
I
till
have meetings
8.
on Thursday, the 15th. I have a meeting for work from 12 to 1 and from 1:30 to 3. But other than that, I could make something work.
I have like 6 meetings that day, but I
Yeah.
could probably make the afternoon. I could skip one or 2 of them. I could do something in the afternoon if we need to. But you're not available?
I'm only available from 3 to 4, according to her.
2 to 4,
3 to 4.
3 to 4.
And then Brady Giga has to come in right away, so we need to leave this meeting.
I could probably leave the meeting at 1:30, about 30 minutes early, so I could be available starting at 2:30. If that's helpful.
How many meetings do you have? 6?
Well, I can make 2:30 to 4 work that day. I can just skip a meeting.
Oh,
So,
we can't, wait, Thursday, we have
The
12, we have 12 to 1, right? We have
Yeah.
12 to 1, then I have 4 to 5, and then 6:30 to 8. So 4 meetings for me.
well, we
Is
don't
there
have,
We don't have to
It
do
doesn't
that
have to
day.
be that day.
is there another
I
day?
can do the
What's
evening
that?
of the 19th.
Is that one of our meetings? Is that a special meeting?
We don't have a special meeting set yet. There hasn't been a.
I could do on Tuesday the 13th. I could be here by 3, if that helps.
Do that, and there's the CPRB meeting in the morning until noon I have to go to, and then we have the police academy at 6.
3 o'clock? I can do 3 o'clock if I need to. On the 13th?
I wouldn't 3 o'clock, not 2 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock, yeah. Yeah, I can do
Sorry,
that.
I didn't say it clear.
Okay, 3 o'clock.
Does that work for the staff?
3 to 5 on, are
I
we
don't
doing?
know, 2 hours of this?
Well, it's always 2 hours at the committee to move this along. I mean,
Yeah, I think we need to
Oh,
get
sorry,
this rule
it
done.
is yours, but, okay, then I have.
it doesn't have to be, it can be shorter, so.
Can be
I
shorter.
think we need to really edit these.
I think we should.
We need to do some pre-work. for
Yeah,
sure.
it depends how you come in with your language. If you had come in with with a draft and it's ready to go, then
Yeah.
it should take a
that's-
half an hour.
Don't you guys have time on the Wednesday, 14th?
Nobody,
We'll
I
figure
don't
it
care about the 14th. I mean, that's just a very
So
long
let's
day.
shoot for 3.
I mean, because that's.
For Tuesday, the 13th?
Yeah, because that's 5 hours of meetings already for me.
I mean, yeah, but then we don't do it if it's not gonna work for you. I mean, that's.
All right, you guys could, you
We'll
don't have to
work
set
on
it tonight either. You can, if you can't come up with a date, you can move forward. We are 13 minutes past and I believe the cleaning crew might be waiting to come in. I told them 8 o'clock.
Right.
So.
I guess, yeah.
So are we saying no to 3 to, say, 4:30 on the 13th? Is that not,
Wait, what? We're saying
13? or 3 to 4:30? I don't know.
Wait.
Does that work?
I'm fine with that.
Just want to make sure that we're clear, because if not, we'll just figure something else out.
Yeah, if we can pick a day that, because I really don't want
Could you make
5
a suggestion of
hours.
some days that
I'm
work for
free the
you?
12th, I can come in the 14th too, and 16th.
The 12th, I have clients scheduled from 11 to 6 p.m.
So no, then 14th,
Or
no
no,
one
until
wants.
5 p.m. I could get here by 6.
There's a budget and grants committee. I
Oh,
don't
that's
think.
right. 14th, nobody wants. 16th, probably nobody wants either for Friday.
Um,
I'm willing to do something. I have client,
Friday, next week on Friday, the staff will
Let's
not be
just-
here after 5 I have to draw
Let's
the
just
line somewhere. That's 5 nights a week of
Yeah, no,
meetings.
that's
We
fine.
just don't
What is
have the
Monday?
staff to
Oh,
do
we
that.
do. Then
unless we can
let's
do
just-
Friday during the day. I mean, if there's a possibility. for
Friday
that.
or day, I'm totally free.
Friday during the day is challenging unless we do earlier in the morning. I could do I cover intakes from starting at 11 a.m. So it would need to be, 8 to 10.
I mean, I think we also, even though it's a special meeting, we saw the number of people interested today in the meeting, so. I don't know, I think that's a bad week. It's Valentine's and then we have it doesn't, so the attempt is to pass this rule before the 28th, right? So we have the week after that too.
I'll be out of town the 20th to the 27th.
Okay. So then Monday we can't do because Monday you can't do right, this is 5. Then I guess Tuesday or
Tuesday what?
Tuesday or Thursday are the only ways.
Of which-
And
Which day?
why don't we just do, I don't know, it doesn't matter, I guess, because the same hours of meetings.
Which days are time?
13th or 15th. From, I can be available from like 12 to 6 or 1 to 6. I take a lunch.
Which day?
13th?
The 13th.
The 13th. So the 13th, I won't be available. The soonest I could get here would be 3 p.m. And I'm gonna guess that, yeah.
So if we do it for, then I go eat for an hour, dinner, and I have to come back for account. Then we have to come back for account.
We can do later, yeah.
So 3 to,
3 to 5. Is that better? Is okay. So how about either Tuesday or Thursday, please, just choose.
Tuesday, 13th. 3 to 5 p.m. Got it?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all, and upwards and onwards.
I would just suggest.
Yeah.
Like the